Right.
All right, let's start this. Once Mike gets in the frame, because it doesn't look weird. What are you doing? What are you eating? What are you eating, Mike? Huh?
Chili. Sorry.
Just
Well,
eat on the podcast.
you know
I
what,
do.
finishing my. I had to like rush my
You know
lunch.
what? I'm not gonna lie. I'm eating my sandwich here
Okay.
in the background.
I have
I
coffee.
ate before this. I ate a New
I
York
usually do. I got
bagel.
one more bite.
Shut up, Raven, and your responsibility.
I know.
I don't want to hear
Professional
it.
Raven.
I don't want to hear it.
It was like
I
smothered
don't want to hear
in
Raven.
butter.
I don't want
We
to hear
eat on
Very
this
fatty.
podcast,
Right,
okay?
we eat on the podcast. Raven eats before podcast.
I ate too.
Ooh. High and mighty.
Scared.
This is now turned into an ASMR
Right. All right, let's
reviewing
start
and
this.
chewing.
Ew, that sounds disgusting.
Yeah,
I've never liked those.
that sound is never
My
good.
biggest pet peeve.
I mean, I wouldn't say never good.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Nerdy Bunch of Lovecraft episode.
My name is English Dave, here with my co-hosts, Mercedes, Rocket Mike, and Raven, who's changing the channel for those of you who are watching, not listening. We're here to talk about Lovecraft
Trigger
Country.
warning.
Right? Oh my god, I hate that music.
This part is so up. I'm skipping it.
For those listening, Raven's talking about the sequence where Lancaster puts the spit on D. Ugh.
I really
So
couldn't
disgusting.
watch that
Put a
scene. Like, I was so
song.
uncomfortable.
I put a spit on you.
Wow.
Now you're mine. All right, let's.
What is wrong with you? Like,
We're here to talk Lovecraft Country, Ep.08, Jiga-Bobo. There's a significance to that name. Mercedes will tell us about it later in the references section. The synopsis is as follows. Diana finds herself in Captain Lancaster's crosshairs when a visitor from his past arrives. Atticus and Letty take steps to protect their future. Dun dun dun. Overall thoughts. I'll start with you, Mercedes, on this episode. We're almost at the end.
man, I thought Meet Me in Daegu was going to be my, like, jaw dropper of the season. And it's just, I feel like every time I say it, it's like usually in the first 15 minutes. And I'm like, they do it again. Like, how is this happening? Why? And it was like 10. This one was definitely 10 out of, like, what? 10 out of 20. It's the 20. And if it was the 10 was the best, it's a 20. It was horrifying. It was horrifying in a sense of like what humans can do to each other. It was terrifying in a story sense. And then it was kind of like just real and beautiful and just like a great, well acted episode where you just felt everything from every single character. I was like sucked in for the full like hour. Like I felt like I was like, sucked in, and then I was like, whoa, Lovecraft is done. So I loved it this week.
No, I agree. I think even though this show's clearly leaned on horror, I feel like this episode was just a real horror episode in terms of like even the horror reference. It felt like a horror movie, not horror,
This
not just
episode
horror,
was terrifying. Like, this episode to me
was
was
just
more
full-on horror.
terrifying than any other episode.
right?
Yeah, and levels of terror too. Like,
Like I was like backing up on my couch. I was like, no more dancing. Stop the songs. This is too much. No.
Well, so Raven, what else did you think about the episode outside of being too much for you?
Well, one thing that I took away from it, and I realized after the fact, was that Misha Green actually directed this episode.
The first one.
And yeah, which I was like, wow. Because out of any episode, I think this one was very well directed. I think in terms of just horror, like you were saying, even just the camera angles, the choreography, the way that each scene was kind of composed. I loved it. I think visually, and I also think that the mirrors to now, everything that was reflective of what's happening now was very, very real for me. The moments of I can't breathe, or it was just there was definitely, I think this episode, and I think I've said trigger warning before, but this episode was like definitely and the spit, god, there's a lot. But I think that overall, I think overall it was also a really good way to deal with the Bobo story, because I think we had said it in one of the episodes, the episode we saw with him in the Ouija board. We had wondered how this show was going to play out, the death. Like, would it be off screen? Is it just going to be something that they mention and don't deal with? So I think that in terms of how to deal with something that most people already know about in a way that's still new, I think was really, really impressive.
Mike, what were your thoughts on this episode?
It's becoming excuse me, it's becoming a competition over what's become my favorite now. Like, we can just say this
There
has
is no
become one of
favorite.
my it's just counted as one of my favorite shows now of
Damn,
all time. At
easily.
least easily the best show of 2020. This one, we get a little bit more history, as they've been really great about HBO in general. If you don't know the story of Emmett Till, national tragedy. So we get a little bit more insight on this, especially through Christina, and we'll get to that. But also, what hasn't been said already, this has been one of the most terrifying episodes in actual history and in fictional. With the twins. My God, I didn't know if I was going to sleep that night. I thought it had very much it
I was
vibes.
so tired of those little girls. So tired of them. I was like, can we stop?
Every time
We
they
get
pop
it.
up, eesh, I was like
I know.
throwing shit.
I was like, we get it. They're scary. We don't need to keep showing their faces.
I think I tossed my phone at one point.
They
like,
were they're it's like what I didn't know is that those were adult women that are professional dancers. You could have had me fooled. Those look like terrifying
You could tell
little
they were
children.
dancers with the back bends and stuff. I was like,
And
they
they had-
dance real good.
And they're
And
very
in fact,
toned.
grown people don't usually have that back though, so I thought it was kids because we keep doing all that bendy stuff, man. I don't.
Let's go into the actual episode itself. Raven, I want to start with you. It opens up with Emmett Till's funeral, and the song, I think, was perfectly put, "Cruel Summer." What did you think of that whole scene?
I think that scene was it was tough because I think that, not saying it's easy, but I think that, we've heard the Emmett Till story enough times to where you almost don't feel like there's new information that you could get, or that you could feel more disgusted in the events that happened. Something as small as adding the detail of Dee saying, what's that smell, I think for me was really,
And that was
it
real.
was almost like I felt it.
That actually
Yeah.
happened, yeah.
That's so
I heard
disturbing.
they because of that. That's why they put him in a glass casket, because and it was one of the hottest
yeah.
summer of the year at the time. I love seeing that whole crowd of people. And if you look at pictures, that was how many people came. And it was tough.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, I appreciated the fact, or like you really understood how serious this all was. You see people from so many different religious backgrounds. Everyone was just in agreement that this is disgusting. But it's almost it's so reflective of what's going on now with George Floyd. So I think that, like, granted, it's not as big of a scale, but you didn't have social media back then, so most of that was just the news and word of mouth. So I think that watching that moment for me was really tough. It definitely sank in a lot more. I think because you also have the perspective of someone that knew him personally, Dee having to deal with so much death. And I also think the acting too, I think it was nice to finally see Dee be able to have her own episode. And I think that what's the actress's name?
Jada Harris.
Jada Harris. So, I felt like she did a good job where you understood, that she was mourning, that she's dealt with a lot of loss recently. I felt like some of the things that she was doing, although I didn't agree with, I understood where she was coming from. So I think that that whole opening scene, this is the mood, and also the song. Because Cruel Summer, I think that I kind of secretly love that song. So when I heard it, I was like,
You're like, wait, no.
And I felt bad because it's like y'all had a funeral. But I think that it was great song choice, because something about that song made me feel the heat of the summer that much more, and the gravity of it so much more, and us knowing that Letty's hiding a pregnancy, but it's also super hot, and we don't know what Tick knows, and Tick is keeping secrets. So I think it was like the whole opening scene was just tense and hot and sweaty. I felt the way that the mood of the opening was.
And we get information here that Tick didn't tell anyone that he'd gone through the portal too. He made everyone seem as if it was just Aunt Hippolyta had gone through. And also, like, this is the beginning of a thread that goes throughout the whole episode. Is one, it starts off with everyone kind of figuring out, what do we do with Dee? Should she be here? Like, how do we teach or guide children through death? And I love what Montrose is like, no, she should be here. This is real. Like, this isn't gonna go away. We can't hide this from her. But then she ends up going missing, and which leads to an encounter with the police. After seeing the girls with ice cream. And fun fact, I did not know this. According to Jim Crow laws at the time, black people couldn't eat vanilla ice cream.
Yes, I found that out
Like,
too through this
I
episode.
did not know that.
And I was
What?
blown away.
What?
Because then you realize the girls are eating vanilla ice cream.
That's why they're skipping and happy. Like they're like
Because off the
trying
beginning,
to
I was like,
Oh.
why is she mad?
So when Lancaster, Sadie's on talk to you about this, her encounter with Lancaster, like it could have gone any way, but this, I just felt like, it made me
It could have gone any way, but like there was no other way for it to go. Like I feel like the minute I saw the car pull up and the tone of the way the episode went and the tensions of how everyone's so angry from all sides, that whole encounter was only going to be a negative one. And this, I think the way when they had to do the spit scene and the reason why they made it so like, it was just extra. Like it was like Nickelodeon slime.
It was like
And
rape
so
without
sad.
rape.
There was something in that. It was
they did that and it was done on purpose, just
Yeah.
the severity, like the viewer could see, like it's not just spitting on someone, it's the act of like complete and pure like hatred. Like
It's a violation,
don't even think of
right?
you. I don't even think of you
Literally,
as human.
it's a power trip over somebody. It's same
Right.
as rape. It's the same feelings behind it,
And I just
Disgusting.
totally, I felt for like D, because from my perspective with the Emmett Till story, like I went to a predominantly like white school, so we learned about it, but the brutality and just the details were not like given to me as the way were in this episode. So when I watched it and I found out like what exactly happened to him, I had to like pause it for a second because I was like,
Yep.
that's a lot. Like that's a lot to like, and like you understand why curriculum would leave out that detail, but you can't.
My school showed us the photos
Yeah, while
of
they
his
didn't.
body.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I didn't get that.
Which is what
So
his
for
mom
me-
wanted, right? His mom wanted that on purpose. She wanted people
Yeah,
to
it
see.
was in our books.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So when you find out that episode, and then like when she's screaming at the little girls at the ice cream, at first you're like, you don't get it, but it's like such a double-edged sword because these girls are skipping because it's like, this is such a heavy day. A little boy has died, but they finally get to have this vanilla ice cream. But Dee's coming at it because she actually knew this little boy, and she has no way to like internalize those feelings of like the rage that she feels like somebody just did this to a child.
And I guess seeing other people happy when she's not, she's like, fuck you. How come you get to be
Exactly.
happy? How come you get to have vanilla ice cream? Yeah.
And then,
hate
the whole
vanilla ice
scene was
cream.
just crazy. And then the curse, when he puts the curse on her, you think it's going to be something like small. And then when it leads into the later episode, you're like, oh, that's mean.
Did you notice the cream of wheat guy's eyes moved?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
was
did
like,
notice that. I wonder what
what?
that's about.
I was
It's
like, what?
ew.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out if it's something that's later on or if it's part of the same curse. Like that was the beginning of the curse. I don't know. Mike, I want to talk to you about Montrose and Dee. This is one of their first interactions of multiple interactions in this episode. Largely, Dee goes unnoticed in this episode, but I think Montrose is the only one that kind of tries, and I think that ties into him trying to be better because of how his past with Tick. What did you think of that moment at the house? When she bursts into the house with Montrose.
Yeah, you've been seeing a huge shift in Montrose lately. He's really taken ownership of who he really is now, and I feel like he's really trying to make up for lost time. He feels maybe that he's kind of maybe too late with Tick right now. Obviously, Tick has been pretty hard on him the last episode and most of this episode too. So I can see why now he's trying to cater to his niece, and she needs someone there for her right now. Both of her parents are gone. Mom's lost in the cosmos. Father's passed away. And she just lost her best friend, which is national news. If anyone needs attention, it's her at this moment. And, it's impossible to put yourself in her shoes, but you can feel for Montrose at that point. You see him like suppressing his anger because you see him getting shut out again, probably the same way as Atticus did when he was a kid, maybe. And you see him get angry at first, and then he quickly erases that. He quickly goes back to dad mode, which is it's a great arc that he's showing in this series. He's starting to become a favorite of mine now because I love the growth and how he's been learning so much about himself. So, it was touching. But then, it was a weird juxtaposition with him giving this heartfelt story about him losing his own friend while she is now experiencing something terrifying happening in that bathroom with that
book.
novel.
Yeah.
Uncle Tom's Cabin. Yeah. Which I didn't know anything about either. The history of that book as well.
I think that episode is important for that because I like from my schooling, we just read excerpts from the book, and so they just show you, the horrors of the book and that, but you don't really get the severity of like how when white people read this book at that time, that is how they looked at Black people. Like that is how like they viewed us, which is what the episode was trying to show. Like that's when my mom explained to me, she's like, that's where she loved it, because they actually show the horror of the book. Like that Uncle Tom's Cabin was like a terrible book.
What I love
but it's
about
crazy
that
though, because the true history of the book is that the book was written to be about anti-slavery. It was supposed to promote the abolishment of slavery. And white people saw it, and it was so real to where it became a joke. Like it almost hit too close to where they were like, okay, you're making fun of them, we get it, ha ha ha, yay, and like completely missed the whole point of it. Crazy enough, the book apparently was one of the sparks of the actual I think civil rights movement,
the Civil War.
Civil War.
It sparked the Civil War, but then it's like crazy because it also was the cause of a lot of terrible Black imagery, like Sambo, Mammy dolls, blackface. A lot of that stuff came from there, which is the adverse effect of it. But I think it was crazy interesting. Like I remembered reading the book. I think we read like a kid's version of it though. But then, like as a Black person, one of the worst things you can be called is an Uncle Tom amongst the race, which is like a sellout to your people, which is crazy because I think even that came from this book. And I never read the book, but I knew growing up if somebody called me an Uncle Tom, it's time to fight.
Well, I think from what I haven't read the book, from what I researched, the reason why the character of Tom, I think something happens to him because of white people and he forgives them. And I think people were mad at that in the book that he forgave them for it. One of the best moments I like about that, Mikey touched on it, when Montrose, his anger, and he brings it down, but when he talks to her, he's the only one that doesn't talk down to her. He tells her like that story. I lost someone when I was a kid. It's a sad thing that happens, but he tells her, white people are going to come at you like this, but don't let it be easy. Fight back. Yeah. And that's what I kind of love about Montrose is that, it's something that we all talk about now. And I'm at the point where I'm discussing children with my wife, and it's like, okay, how are we going to raise these kids? Are you going to lie to them? Are you going to dumb things down for them? And sometimes that's detrimental to children to dumb it down. Sometimes you have to tell them the truth about things so that they know the truth, both good and bad. Sometimes people think the truth is only telling them about the bad, but I think the truth is saying the bad thing can happen, but you can also have hope and good things can happen too. Raven, I want to go to you. Ruby, William, and Christina. We get a sequence with the sexy time and the transformative sex, but I like the beginning of it. When the guy comes up to the door, and when Ruby goes up to the gate, and the guy's like, "Who are you? Who are you?" That whole sequence with Ruby leaving the funeral to go to William. How did that?
Well, I feel like, to be honest, like the biggest way that I could describe that is, there are people out in the streets to this day with weapons, arming themselves and shooting at peaceful protesters who are mourning. That's my best way to like describe how I feel about that. It's the same thing. It's like people are going through stuff. They have every right to be upset, to want to rebel, and are choosing not to, are just kind of trying to be in their own zone, deal with what's happened, whether it be D, whether it be Ruby, and, back to back, we got both of them harassed by cops, in a moment of full vulnerability, after a day that, most Black people know, we're at this funeral, know what's going on, we're connected in some way, you're still harassing Black people, you still care about this strange hierarchy, in a moment of mourning. Like, she just lost someone. She doesn't give a shit about the color of your skin or if you're a cop or any of that stuff. And I felt so bad for her because as a viewer, we know what Ruby's going through. But,
she just needs a minute.
Yeah, and that moment is so real because it's like, to be honest, Black people never get a break. It's like, it just goes without saying. And I feel like, Ruby almost forgot that she was a black woman in that moment. You know, she's
I think
been
she
wearing,
wanted to figure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
that's
definitely
she doesn't have
wanted
anything
to.
to say, and the guy's so aggressive, and she's just like, I can't. Like, it's just, thank God,
Yeah.
William gets there when he does, because it would have definitely
Yeah.
ended in a different way. But
And I also feel like strangely her being a white woman and being able to wear, the body of a white female is making her somehow more empowered as a black woman, but also more exhausted, which is a bad combo when it comes to the cops.
She's getting addicted to this though, and I don't think it's gonna.
Oh, definitely.
It's not gonna go.
I mean, from what I
well.
heard in the books, she ends up like an addict.
She's very addicted to this. I love the moment.
But I don't know. I don't really.
I found it interesting the moment when she asks Christina if she cares, and then Christina kind of hits her back with it, like, "Well, how much do you care?" It's just like a moment. It's just like, damn, that's a tough question to ask.
It's like I'm also thankful that she asked.
Yeah.
You should ask. You should know where she stands. And I also respected Christina's answer.
Yeah,
I'd rather a lot of people respond that way than,
be honest.
"Oh, I care," or "All lives matter."
right. I'm curious.
Oh God, that's the worst.
I'm curious as to how it works in terms of the potion, because I felt like it wore off quicker than we've seen in the past. I don't know. I don't know what that significance, if there is a significance to it. I don't know. But
Orgasm?
When you get orgasms?
I mean,
Maybe.
I feel like you burst out of your skin. I don't know what it's like for dudes. But
Mercedes, I want to talk to you. I kind of categorized all of this into one grouping. Topsy and Bopsy, which is the names of the characters that are chasing Dee. I kind of put all their interactions with Dee in one. So the first interaction is at the train station when Dee finally first sees them and she can't realizes that no one else can see them. The second time when she tries to tell Letty about it and Letty won't listen, and you realize that her voice, she was cursed that her voice won't actually work if she tries to tell her. And then the third time in the alleyway while she's waiting for Lancaster. All those three moments with Topsy and Bopsy, how did they make you feel?
The first one, I was like, ooh, that's scary. The second one, I was like, ooh, that's scary, but I don't want to see it anymore. Third one, I was like, stop, I get it.
The alleyway moment, because they did a good job of being like, Dee doesn't have a clue that they're there. And they're like walking up to her. And I was like, Dee, turn around, turn around. I was shouting.
I had so much anxiety. It's freaking out.
Oh
but what I will say, when you get to like the last one, the fight scene, I was with her. I was like, come on, girl, let's fight. When we getting like,
Mike, I want to talk to you about Jaya. She arrives. One thing I love about that, I love the first shot I loved is when Letty walks in, her storm walk into the house looking for Dee.
Yeah.
And the way the camera's situated, you see Jaya on one side. And you're like, oh, snap.
I didn't catch it at first.
Like,
oh no, I instantly caught it. I was like, ooh, shit.
And then I
love
love
the last frame.
I love this sequence with when Tick arrives. Instantly noticed by seeing the shoes.
Shoes outside. He's like,
oh yeah.
So Mike, what do you think of the whole?
He knew he fucked up. He done fucked up now.
He's like, oh, come on.
What is it? All the things. So Mike, Jaya arrives, tells Letty about everything. What do you think of that whole sequence?
Oh man. My personal opinion was I felt like Letty might have overreacted a little bit. That's just my opinion, because it really had nothing to do with her. This was not her business whatsoever.
True.
He didn't need to tell her. This happened all before
they broke up.
Yeah,
it's not like
he did tell her, so that's why I was like, why is she freaking out?
Yeah. It's not like no
She's
mystery
pregnant.
That's what it is. I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I think it's just she's pregnant. It's got nothing else. It's just she's pregnant.
She's just pregnant.
Listen, I am a big fan of Letty, and you have every right to be upset, but I felt it was just all over the place because she was kicking him out, and then the next second I was like, where are you going? I'm like, okay, don't chase after him after you told him to fuck off. Like, you're stronger than this. You are an independent woman who doesn't need this, like, don't take no shit. But and I get like there's still more questions that are unanswered from Jihad. Why is she there? If she's not going to tell him how he dies, I understand that she loves him, but you don't just show up to someone's door when you don't know his life right now. He could have been married for all she knows. But again, she is a spirit. She's not exactly human, so she doesn't think that
She's still learning things, right? I guess.
There's a lot of tit for tat.
She's like 10 years old. Or maybe.
Yeah. She doesn't know.
It's conflicting. You see everyone's point of view, so you don't know whose side to take at this point,
I love the line when Tick talks about Jaya killing all those guys, and she's like, "It's in my nature. What's your excuse?" I was like, ooh.
Exactly. Like she had no choice.
I was like,
Right.
ooh, true.
You know,
She
like-
did what she had to do. Also, a couple of things I wanted to say quickly about that scene too. For me, I was like, I felt like Tick was over the top for me because I was like, granted, I get that you're mad with all the name calling and the threats. Like, come on now, you know what I'm saying? Like I get it, but like, it just seemed like overly aggressive to where I was like,
I mean, this scene's literally happening to you in the background.
I feel like
it's explosive.
But then I agree.
Very
but then
much.
I feel like, what was the last time Tick saw Jaya? He had tentacles all over his body.
Here's the thing, though, right? So I will say these couple of things. I felt like, to Mike, with you saying that you felt like, Letty overreacted at first, I would agree. But the only reason I would slightly disagree is because I wouldn't have reacted at all, and I don't think Letty would have cared. I think Letty is mad because she had to find out from Jaya. I don't think she's mad about anything else except for the fact that the other woman is in her house.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that
And she's like, because she loves you. She mad that she loves him. That
and
Jaya
also
loves him.
Letty, for Letty, it was like that was her first, to hear that your man's been with somebody else, and this
His
chick
first.
sitting here. Yeah, like you don't want to hear from his first. So I get why she would be mad, and then but my whole thing is too with Jaya, I wish there was more of a reason for her to pop up because at first I was like, nah, she's gonna explain.
That's my critique of the episode.
Yeah.
She does
because
nothing.
that's my only thing is that like there was no reason in the episode to really have her there.
Yeah.
Except for the drama.
So I guess for me, when I knew that I knew
appreciated
Jaya was
this scene
coming
after, but
I knew Jaya was coming. So for me, the way I felt about the scene, like I kind of like I don't really like Tick anymore at all because he could have definitely explained more in depth to Letty in that past episode, like how much he really loved her and like how much it fucked with him when he found out that there was, she wasn't really human. Because that's a, real reaction. So that this way, when she does finally show up to the house, it isn't DEFCON 1. I totally forgive Letty because Raven brought up an awesome point. She's fucking pregnant. So, and that's what Mike was saying. Like, she went from literally like, get the fuck out to where you going in like like not even 1 minute time frame. So that's clearly all like hormones. But for Tick, like his whole like negative and venom just comes from like the fact that he's afraid he's gonna lose Letty. So it's clear like he loves Letty more than Jaya. But like to just literally spit in the face of like this so-called love you had, because here's the
I
thing.
think that's messed up.
Yeah, you said you loved her, you could handle anything, but then she tried to tell you that she's the kumiho and you ran away. And then when she's trying to still tell you about it, then everybody, y'all storm off in your relationship shit. And then, of course, what is she supposed to say? She doesn't really know, but she just came to, like, try to figure it out with you, but you happen to have a girlfriend now. And I don't know if you guys noticed about this episode, we saw, like, the blossoming of one relationship, which was Ruby, William, Christina, and we saw the breakdown of another towards the end. So I love, like, the two mirroring effect of that,
I mean, my thoughts on that whole moment, I agree with all of you, and I think that's what the show does, right? I think the show, I've said this every week, the show doesn't put any one character as perfect, flawless.
Yeah, true.
Every character has flaws.
Because I think I even turned to Paris and said, like, I agree with all of them.
That's what I'm saying. Everyone's
I get
right.
it.
For sure.
But I think it was just a Tick specifically. I was like, because I expect better.
Yeah. But that's the thing, it's our expectations, right? And no one told us Tick was a perfect guy. But also I think, what the show does a good job of is we sometimes forget perspective, right? And it's like, if we only follow the story of any one person's perspective, they are right. Tick's going through a lot in that moment. Letty's going through a lot. Letty's anger also comes from the fact that Tick never tells her anything. But then Tick's like, I know you're not telling me something either. Because he, at this point, we know in hindsight later, he knows about the pregnancy.
At the same time, like something like a pregnancy, she can take all the time she wants. She got another 6 months.
No, I know, but he's probably creating stories in his head.
Remember, like,
he's got secrets every day.
Yeah.
He's like adding to the secrets every day.
Tick
and then like still not telling her last week's. He doesn't have a good like background of like good emotional release. Like every man like in his life has shown him, just to beat things. So in his perspective, he's already doing better because he's not slapping anybody. He didn't hit Jaya and he hasn't hit Letty. He's just screaming in their faces. Because that's the only thing he knows. Like no man has ever like sat down and like embodied like his knowledge, like sit down and actually have a conversation to work something out. They're either screaming and beating him.
And I feel like
Dad taught him.
Put myself in the context. I don't care. My wife now, if we were having sex, somehow she turned to a demon And the next time I saw her, I don't know if our next conversation reaction is going to be the same. It's different because as the audience, we
and say what we had wasn't real after you made a whole ballroom in the middle of it.
but how do I? Yeah, but
tail in his
here's
my
rebuttal on that though. Here's my rebuttal on that though.
That's a lot. Like if you're fucking somebody and then they just put a furry tail in your butthole.
That's
like,
my thing.
What?
It's like you lied from Tick's perspective. It's like you lied to me though. It's like I don't. Would you date a Kimiho if you knew that that's what that was before they started? I don't know if I would say yes or no. I don't know. Like before you fell in love, what would you have said? So I think from Tick's perspective, he might feel, was this all a lie? Was this all fake? Were you trying to get me? Was I a target trap or something like that? Was this a trap? But then again, this is why I say the show itself.
We did find out he was like number 100. So.
Right?
Yeah.
You're my first.
Clear. Free and clear.
Well, I know you've been with people before me. Yeah, a couple.
Like,
all of them.
99.
And you killed them all? Like every single one, you killed them all?
Oh, and they're all dead.
You're the only one that made it out alive, and I know your whole life story and how
Christmas
you're going to die.
How'd you two meet?
And by the way, I love you though. Like even though I know how you're gonna die, but fucked you on accident, I really do love you.
But then again, constant reminder: nobody's perfect in this show. Raven, Tick and Montrose have a sit down and talk. I love this.
I think that was like my favorite moment.
Great moment
of this episode.
About time.
The set
I think we all
design.
like secretly wanted that.
Right.
Right.
Bond. We all
That
did.
said-
I don't think without like realizing it. I think we've all been waiting. Like, but when are you guys just gonna talk?
Just
Like,
sit down and talk.
dudes.
Right.
So I was very appreciative of the whole thing because one thing that I did notice in the opening sequence was when Montrose came over and tried to letting Tick water. He was like, "Here, boy, take it."
Mm-hmm.
Tick looked at his hand in the water as if like, ugh, like I don't want water from him. Where at first I thought it was because he was like gay. And I was like,
No.
but it's more so he just like really hated his dad. Like he was on some like, I don't know you at all, don't fucking touch me type shit. Which I understood. So like I feel like, going from that to, the both of them sitting on a curb. And like also something about the city being so empty was like really beautiful. Even though everybody's not there because they're mourning.
The sign at the back,
so
it said
beautifully
closed
done.
I would
full.
say yes. The
It was
set
like
design,
magic hour. I was like,
the
bastards.
lighting,
And
it was
clean.
beautiful.
I should be sad that there's no people in the street. But with that being said, yeah, I felt like it was a beautiful moment. The connection between them because I think Tick finally understands his dad because as his dad was saying, all he ever cared about was having a family, building a family. And, family is the strongest thing, the most important thing. And he didn't care about anything else. So it's like, I feel like Tick now having his own family to protect, he's finally starting to see why Montrose did the things that he did, and that's a beautiful thing because, although Letty is mad at Tick at the end of this episode, Montrose, this is the most he's ever understood his son. So I did love that. And just even, telling him that, when Tick told him, Letty's pregnant, I thought that was crazy too, because, technically that means Montrose is the first person Tick told, which is like, even though y'all not friends, you kind of besties right now. And after all their experiences together, it makes sense that they would tell him. But, and I also love that Montrose was like, I'll give my body, everything to protect my son and my grandson. I was like, oh, it was just such a heartfelt moment. I felt like the acting was really good, the set design.
And the fact that he said he didn't cheat on the mom. I like that he said he didn't cheat on the mom.
Yeah, and that was a big part too. He was like, no, I didn't start, looking into any of that until after she died, which I think makes more sense too for us also as a viewer now. Because I think that when we saw him 2 weeks ago at the gay bar, we were kind of like, you're a grown ass man, you should have been enjoying your life sooner and all this other stuff. But it makes sense because his life was kind of on pause for Tick.
It also makes it pretty possible that he still could be his biological father.
Yeah, I think I think there's that argument for either way. Like we had a kid because we needed, because he says, me and your mother, we wanted a family.
Why'd they get married in the first place?
They had familial love. They needed, in that time, you did need somebody to take care of you as a woman. You couldn't just be married. That would lead to you probably would get raped or you would end up being like in a halfway house somewhere. So you did kind of have to get married.
Shit talking about you,
exactly. And you're a spinster. So, you know,
Mhm.
I really appreciated that scene with them two, because it was almost like going to church. So we've had a lot of scenes where these characters are going to church and supposed to having these like moments where they're like talking to God. But when these two guys sit together, I feel like they're actually, it's like true confessional, and a true conversation, and like one that is of true forgiveness and understanding. I appreciate this show because I think it shines the light on a lot of like gay and issues that have been in the past. Where like, why don't people come out? You know, there's a reason why people in the 2000s of now still are in the closet, and there's a reason why back in that time people did not come out, because it wasn't just a matter of being Black. It was a matter of when homosexuality, like we treated it like mental health cases. I mean, we had no mental health like laws back in the day. They were doing full on lobotomy cutting.
They were doing lobotomies.
Yeah.
And I did really appreciate this episode for like shedding light on that.
People
I think
that,
it's easy for us to be like, oh, just be yourself, man.
Or why is Montrose so angry?
And a lot
Montrose.
of heterosexuals don't know that. Yeah. They don't know that history of like when people came out as gay, a lot of the family members would then send them to asylums, and then asylums would do these horrific experiments because we didn't have any like mental health. Like they were just figuring it out
either at that point.
You know, and that's how homosexuality was viewed then. And now on top of the fact that he's a Black man, it's not even about like, dude, I'd not cheat on your mom. I just wanted to protect myself from the dangers of the outside world. And I think that Tick finally understands that. And that's why, like, when the dad's like, I will give my body and soul to protect you, like, he really believes it. And they can actually work on it together. And it's a step forward.
We get two pieces of information in this scene as well. One, confirmation that Tick knows that lady's pregnant with a son. And then it's like, wait, how does he know it's a son?
So much happened in that scene.
Don't you love the way they just sprinkled it in there? Right. Oh yeah, I went through the portal. Wait, what?
Because we did wonder that, because I was definitely wondering the whole episode, like, how did George Freeman write the book? And I was thinking maybe in some alternate universe, Uncle George is still alive.
Dave said
and
it.
The second he was like, this is my son that Letty's carrying. I was like,
yeah.
Here's
I screamed. I was like, oh my God, this is what Dave was talking about.
Here's my question.
Yeah, I think Paris and I screamed, George Freeman.
Here's my question though. You know, when we find out the whole context of what happened in terms of what he says, I went there, some woman with a robotic arm gave me this book and I was sent back. So he doesn't spend much time out there. So he assumes he's in the future. Again, because the past episode is like
for that woman.
Because I have some speculation of that too. But you see, here's my theory, because he talks about the book being different, which is it's great kind of tongue-in-cheek, fourth wall breaking for the audience, because the book in real life that in our world is like the book he has, where D was a girl, or D was a boy, and Christina is a guy. But here's my thing: he says, "Oh, my son changed the stories." But I'm thinking maybe the son didn't change it, and in that reality, that's how it happened. Because he just assumes it was the future. But he's only there for moments, you know. He assumes it's his timeline. And the last episode shows that there's multiple timelines, multiple realities, you know, one where Uncle George was still alive. What if he went to the reality that George was alive where Hippolyta was, you know, where she goes back to him? You know, so
is Hippolyta the only one that knows that it's a trans-dimensional machine? Because I feel like
she understands it.
So Letty, Tick, and everybody else think it's just a time machine, right?
Yes, because she's smarter than the average bear.
That makes sense. Okay, so that's why he's like the robotic arm, but he has no idea that it's just like not even. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, going by Raven's possible theory, that robotic arms could be D in the future.
It could be D.
Could be D, because what happens to arm at the end of the episode?
At the end of the
Remember
episode,
her arm?
Curse that the girls put on her. For scratching up her arm.
Yeah.
So I think she might lose that arm.
It could
might
be D.
robotic, and she might be kicking ass.
Maybe D becomes like some kind of dimension time traveler. And
yeah, because I think Hippolyta's coming back for her baby. Yeah. I don't think she's going to leave.
Oh, definitely. That's what she said. She's coming back. I guess it takes a week.
She's still flying around.
Mercedes, earlier on you talked about church, and we get a church scene, Letty and Christina. I feel like Christina's playing everybody. You see how she's interacting with everybody except for Montrose?
But that's the thing. That's what they do, though. They make you think that they're everybody's friend, you know? Right. And it's like I'm just looking like, all of you are making irrational decisions and then making deals with Christina. It's not like any of you have consulted, and all of you agree that the other one shouldn't work with Christina.
And she's just watching too, like, oh, okay. Okay, you want to spell?
like, I'm
That'll
pretty
work.
sure if you had a round table, you would all be like, we
Maybe you shouldn't.
mutually have decided not
You
to
want a
fuck.
potion, boo? I'll give you a potion. Don't tell your sister though.
Oh,
Actually,
why don't you take this?
I want to ask you about that, Mercedes. Letty asks for the potion for Tick, but Christina's like, no, I'm gonna give it to you. I have my theories as to why she does that. Why do you think she
Of
does
course. Because we already know that Tick has figured out that Christina needs to sacrifice him, which is why we need the protection spell. Sorry, Mike, not to jump on your segment there, but that's why we need it in the first place. So I think that she did it on purpose.
that? I need him to die.
She needs him to die, and she played to Letty's hormonal mom tendencies. So it's like, who you gonna protect, the baby inside of you, the new generation, or some man who keeps flip flopping and not giving you full information? And said, keeping secrets. Y'all have relationship problems. You're gonna protect your baby. So I think she played on to that maternal instinct that Letty has right now. I think, like I said in the first episode, Christina is playing chess, and none of them realize it. And it's not going to be till last episode, so it's too late. But I do love Christina for female empowerment because she's just doing it for all the girls, but just trampling on everybody on the way.
It's funny you say that, and I think that's part of the reason why she also gives it to Letty, because she's like, fuck the men. Every time they bring up Letty or Ruby bring up men, Christina's always, fuck the men. It's about us.
It's like, y'all
Trying to cause a
He
divide.
wants to shake them and be like, stop talking about penises.
like I feel like I tell my friends that are like in relationships, like, don't take advice from single people. It's like the same thing. It's like, no, she doesn't like dudes. Just don't even bring it up. Just ask someone else. She's not the one.
No,
she's always gonna be you can be like, I got these pair of shoes for my dad first. Oh, is he a man?
And I get it from where Christina comes from. Could you imagine growing up your whole life getting no respect because you don't have a penis and being super brilliant and smart? And your dad's
granted,
just
I get it.
Whatever. So he created that monster, and now we're dealing with it on the show.
Right. And Mike, Sadie's touched on it further. This furthers the relationship between Tick and Montrose. Montrose earlier on says, I will do the spell for you. I will take the risk, and he has the motivation for it. So that whole sequence with the spell, finding out Montrose is dyslexic, and finding out about the magic. What did you think of the whole incantation moment?
Oh yeah, so it brings up a question: did the spell actually work, or did it actually not work because of his dyslexia? Because that's the whole thing I'm thinking. Like, he just told you he's dyslexic, so he's
what does it mean?
Lexic. So you're going to trust him with an incantation on something that's very important to your life.
That's what I thought too. Like, wording matters, though.
Hated your dad a minute ago, and now you're going to trust your life with him, knowing he has a disability.
It's like, I know we're desperate, guys, but there has to be a better way.
Yeah, call Christina and Montrose.
Well, you sure you want to go through with this?
The person who wants to murder you and the person who can't read. There has to be somewhere in the middle that we could meet.
I love the line that Montrose says where he's like, I was fearful that I would get killed by white folk or whatever, but if it's magic, hey, that's got more jazz to it. I was like, okay.
Right? It's like, oh, that was such a dad thing to say, like, to make you feel better. I was like, oh, dad.
Like, I mean, it's gonna be a cool way to die. I'll tell you a story.
Yeah.
But then he does the sign of the cross and he's like, oh, I mean, it can't help.
Never know.
You never know. My theory is that Mike,
backwards.
right?
I felt like that was such like a ode to like the when you're with your mom and they do something that they like, it can't help, and it's like, Mom, it's not like we're not doing that anymore. And then it's like he does the amen. It's like, what are you doing?
I won't lie, Montrose is low-key hilarious this whole season. Like the little things he does, like it's just so funny. I die laughing. But Mike, I had the same.
Sorry, this is random, but I just thought, what if because of his dyslexia, he came up with a whole different spell? Like he just boom got his own incantation.
Actually,
this Freeman incantation.
my theory on that whole dyslexia thing was that his dyslexia led to the incantation being delayed. Because we don't see the results till later. It was delayed.
The other side was like,
no, you guys are good.
He's like,
it's a obviously it was
hit it on the side a couple times.
Trigger warning.
Monsters are like, guys, I think he summoned us. I'm not
sure. You think is that what he said?
They spent ages debating. They were debating the wording. Sorry, guys.
Is
I'm
it
gonna
you
go
or
look,
is it
okay?
me?
I'm gonna go look, y'all. You know what? Because if he's dead, we gonna.
It's
do
like
what
when
we
the
fucking
cops
are.
get a prank call. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
like when the cops get a call, they're like, "Oh, someone go check it out." I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
we
go to
don't
the
know.
address.
Get up there. Get up there.
I don't know if they meant to call us or
And
not. Just
the
switch
crank call was like all gobbledygook. It was just like random words. Like, blah, 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 blah. 'Cause I
I
understand.
think he needs our help.
I think Raven, one of my favorite sequences is Dee confronting Lancaster. What I love about Dee is she's at that point in her life where she's got that bravado because the real world hasn't hit her yet. Like she's that part of that innocence is what gives her the bravado. Because when she walks into that room, I was like, no, don't do that.
No, honest, Dee reminded me like when Raven gets.
I was
mad
like, you
about
getting real
something.
bold now.
I was like,
doing
oh,
so
that's
much.
Raven's same energy when she walked into the room. She's like, rah. Like,
Nah, I'm chilling now.
was just
People don't
like-
really test me no more. I think it's the drugs. But yeah, I was very, very much scared for Dee when she walked in there. But I guess she also figured she survived being spat on,
Right.
and cursed, and followed by demon dancers. So I feel like I'd probably be bold too.
Mhm.
Um,
What do you got to lose?
Definitely, it was a scary scene, but it's also, I think you also realize in this scene how much both of them don't know about the other one. Like Dee really doesn't know shit about any of this magic stuff. She doesn't know anything that anyone in her family is involved in. None of it. Because she thinks she got all this under control, but she hasn't seen all the things
She's
that
late
her
to the
family
game.
has the past couple of weeks. And then, you also have the police officer who assumes who underestimates Dee and assumes she's just some young girl, which, we all know isn't the case at all. She's Hippolyta's kid.
Hippolyta,
So,
that African name.
Yeah, he said, Hippo, what? He said,
She
you
said-
African-Americans' names. It's like,
like, you're a dummy.
Yeah, my mom's name is Hippolyta.
It's Greek, you idiot.
It's Greek.
Asshole. And then she spit
Yeah,
on him.
I
I
like
was like,
that.
that's right, boo. You tell him.
It's good. But I also was like, I don't know, you should have gathered it up for a little longer. The way that you should have returned it in full. Maybe even sipped some water or something and went.
She
for
had
it.
just
And I was like,
she rode her bike all the way there. She was parched. She did that.
That Ace Ventura scene. Just
Fuck you, pig.
It's
Dude,
so
when-
true though.
when
Like,
she
I was
spits
like,
on him-
get him, but I also can't watch.
I was terrified when she said "fuck you,
As a
pig" and
person
spit on
who's
him. I
like-
was like, "Oh my god,
Yo,
they're gonna kill her!"
I
right
thought she was gonna die.
I was like peeking over the fence, like, ooh.
I really thought she was gonna die when she spit on him. Fuck you, pig.
Right? I was like, "Damn, they're gonna
yo.
kill Dee right here in this episode, huh?"
That's what I
That's
thought. I
it.
was like, damn, Hippolyta gonna come back and her child's dead. That was terrible. So I'm happy she survived this
Yeah.
scene.
Which I like how the scene ends with when she
And she
leaves.
said it stinks in here.
Yeah,
Probably because
Closet.
they still got that dude.
that
Dead
dead
body.
dude. Yeah,
It's a
in the closet, right? And then when she leaves, I love the sequence when she looks at Topsy and Bopsy, and she's like, fuck this shit. Rides her bike like, I'm not running from you. I ride my bike past
Very
you.
First I thought
Dark
she was gonna
Knight.
ride into her.
Yeah,
And
I
at
thought so
first I
too.
was like, smart. And then I was like, no, not smart.
Well, she
No.
slices
No.
it. I thought you would
Because I also
slice,
thought back to times when I was a kid, and people definitely would fuck with me and just grab my actual bike.
right?
It's like, that's a real thing.
And these are
I
demons.
was like, oh no, this is my cousin's.
right.
But but I'm like, no, she definitely has the capability to like just knock you off of it. So like get close and then avoid. So I was like, good, well played game of chicken there. Dee.
What I love
job.
about that sequence as well, in terms of with Captain Lancaster, is that Lancaster, by putting a curse on Dee, inadvertently makes himself less scary to her. Because she's like, well, I'm not scared of you. I'm dealing with demons now. I'm chased by this. I'm not going to be like, you're the least of my problems. I don't care to say, fuck you, pig, and spit on you.
He was ugly at the cops. Like,
because,
motherfucker, I
like-
lasted days.
I deal with
You
worse
told
things
me
than-
magic existed. What?
I'm not scared of you.
Yeah.
The next scene, I think, is one of the most powerful sequences in the episode. It's really hard to watch. We get Christina hiring those men to beat her up the same way that Emmett Till was beaten up and murdered, and I guess to test that, either to test her the mark of Cain or whatever, because she ends up surviving. That scene was very hard. What I liked about the scene though is that it showed us what happened to Emmett Till without showing it happening to Emmett Till,
Yeah.
and I respected that.
Because I wasn't sure that I could handle just seeing it. Like,
Yeah,
I heard of
happened to
it,
Emmett.
in words, but I
Right.
was like, I don't think I can handle, like, if they actually show what happened, it's going to be too triggering for me.
Hmm.
So I did feel like you said, it was like a very good way to show the brutality of what happened without it being like as triggering. But it was still really tough to watch.
Oh, it's definitely tough. Those two guys were like, I don't know why anyone would want to get killed like this, but they're like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway. I was just like,
Take
damn.
the paycheck, goodbye.
Oof.
What's funny is like the way they have the white people say that, like, why would anyone want to get killed like this? But in hindsight, we actually just y'all did that to a boy. So
All right. Like damn.
Why would
And
you
but
want
the thing
to
is
do
that phrase is
I-
that phrase is very telling, right? To say why would anyone want to get killed like that, it means you're very much aware of how bad
wait,
it is.
thank
Of how
you.
disgusting it is. So you
Yep.
just don't,
You're very much
because
aware
it's
of that.
not a white.
And then you did, and this was done to a boy who didn't want to die like this. He didn't want to die like this.
He probably didn't even fight back like Christina did. At least Christina got in a few punches,
Well,
you
he
know?
couldn't. A lot of the stuff happened after they already shot him dead.
Yeah, he was 14 years old. And, like,
They shot him,
he was
and
a
then
kid.
like
A 14-year-old boy
mutilated his body.
against 6,
Oof.
like,
that sequence where they push the thing overboard and it just drags her. I was like, whoa! Like it just pulls her in. It was like, holy shit! And
Yeah,
the
that
trail of
hurt.
blood. Where am I? Letty and Ruby get together, and I like that moment where Letty's like,
I was like, finally, I'm so happy they're friends
Right?
again.
for now,
Ugh.
because because information
For now.
comes out. Ruby tells Letty about Christina, and all that stuff. Mercedes, what do you think of that moment? First with the pregnancy, and both of them kind of feeling guilty about not doing more for Emmett. Letty not taking pictures, Ruby feeling guilty about leaving, and then connecting, and then the blow up about Christina. What do you think of that whole sequence?
yeah, I think it goes back to what I was saying about, these are going to church. Montrose and Tick went to church, a little earlier in the episode. And I think Ruby and Christina finally went to church and confessional in their own sense. Both of them have had moments where, they've needed a sense of release and not really gotten it. And I think with each other, they could actually be completely raw and just get the answer. I think get the answers that she wanted. Like Ruby, even having that conversation with William Christina earlier, it's still not enough of a release as when she has a real one with her sister. Because you know what they say, no one is ever really going to understand you the way your family does, or feel it the way your family is going to feel it with you. So I thought it was really awesome that they were able to talk, but it was still kind of like sisters in the sense where there was still some information omitted. And I thought it was awesome that she said that she knows about magic in Christina, but I don't know how Letty is going to feel about Ruby wanting to create a space with magic when she's already fighting that battle with Tick.
And on top
So
of that,
we'll see how
is
that
Christina
works.
going to teach you magic the way you want to learn? I don't know. Don't fully trust Christina to make things
Oh,
better
no.
for
I
your
don't
life.
trust Christina. I think it
Leave
makes
something
sense
behind.
she's a lesbian, of course, but I don't think that.
Is she though? I was thinking more of
I
a
don't-
trans character.
They've
and I
never
thought,
kissed as girls.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah,
Yeah, they never. Yeah, so I
They've
was
never
thinking
done
they're
these
supposed to be
as
like
girls,
how-
they haven't.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you.
I don't know.
this,
It's weird.
Raven.
It's not lesbian. It's more so
Is
But
it?
that's the thing. I don't feel like I
Because they
feel like
always have
Christina
sex as a
chooses to be a
man.
boy, but I think she's proud of being a woman. So I don't think it's necessarily she feels she was born in the wrong skin. I don't feel like it's a identity.
No.
Right. Okay. So
Because
it's
I feel
not like
she's empowered as a woman.
It's a
But
means
I
to an
don't
end.
think that she-
There was a Black
But
Mirror episode on
I will
that.
also say, I mean, she enjoys having sex with women as a man.
as a
though,
man.
which is
Yeah.
pretty
So
awesome.
it's yeah, that's cool. So I'm like,
But I feel like it's a double way of being a proud.
Here's my question.
Oddly enough,
What
it's
if-
I can do what a man does, and I can get the reaction out of you that a man gets.
Here's my question though with that sexy time stuff. You know how Ruby had the peeling stuff when she had the orgasm. What if fucking William gets a crazy orgasm and the pee-pee falls off? Because she doesn't have that as a woman. What if he transforms back?
Oh my god.
then yeah. What if? You mean the penis is just left inside of you?
Yeah,
Does she keep it?
it just falls out because when the transformation happens, pieces fall off,
Okay.
right?
All right. That's enough. Cut this part out.
Anyway, no, I'm not. I'm not cutting it
I
out.
wondered.
Mike, I want to talk to you about Lancaster and the police arriving at the house. Just after this conversation happens.
Dave, you nasty.
That's stuck in my head now.
Right?
I know that's the one thing you thought about.
No, I feel
one
like she's
thought
got
about that.
And I feel like she's got like a display case of like souvenirs. Like
where's this skin go when it peels off? Does it disappear, disintegrate, or does
Just
it
have
get
No,
that-
that house must stink. If it's just like raw flesh, just house stinks.
in
just
every
have that
trash
image.
can in the house, there's just body
It's like,
parts.
you know, at the end of This Is the End with Seth Rogen, you know, and the demon is like holding on to his dick at the end. He's like, ah.
Yeah, that's it. That's the moment.
God.
Mike, I want to talk to you about the police arriving at the house. You know, they arrive with a fake warrant because they feel the Nation of Islam is terrorists are doing something here. And we were reminded that there's a protection spell in the house, but it only works on people with magic. Because one cop is able to enter, but Lancaster is not.
And that's why Lancaster's like,
It would do
so
something
funny.
else.
You didn't have the right warrant. Motherfucker.
Mike, I want to ask you, did you notice Letty's invulnerability while the house is getting shut up?
Didn't
did.
see it at first. Not at first. Like, you know, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if the spell was going to work or not until she sat up. And then you start seeing it. And it was very much like a Neo Matrix
Right.
moment where everything is in
It's like,
slow motion and she realizes she's the one just reflecting everything. And I'm like, this is
Said
it. She's just going
the
to fly
one,
out
I
now.
can't.
Right.
And then pop up there and do a Neo pose.
I had a moment where I thought a bullet would ricochet and hit Ruby. I was like, oh, don't do that.
Oh,
I
no.
know.
Just because it bounces off of her. Mercedes, Topsy and Bobsy, Dee goes home alone on them. You know, she goes back to the house, locks the doors, and like waiting for them. What I love about that sequence is that Dee can't speak on it because that's part of the curse, right? She can't tell anyone about it. But she goes to what she does best. She starts drawing. That's kind of how she has a release. And then Topsy and Bobsy come, she fights them back, and then Montrose comes and starts to hold her, thinking that she's going crazy. What did you think of that whole sequence?
That whole sequence, I think they did a really good job of like letting the audience like feel her terror and feel her terror as a victim, and then it bubble over into like she does not want to be afraid anymore, and just was like, fuck it, whatever happens, like I'm taking you down with me.
But you
And
got
I'm
a
glad
sense that it wasn't doing anything to them. That's what's scarier.
no, but I don't know. I kind of
Doesn't realize she's just destroying her house.
Yeah, but then when it
Well, her
flipped
dad's
and
garage.
Montrose was like holding her, and then he realized she was actually keeping them away from hurting her, and then he stopped. So it was like, no, Montrose, let her fight back.
Right. And he
'Cause
can't.
the
Well,
se-
we don't know if he notices the arm yet in the episode, right? We don't
Yeah,
notice.
because it just cuts everything
Yeah.
in so quickly, because then it goes to the other monster.
But what I liked about that is that, again, while everyone was ignoring Dee, Montrose was out looking for her. You know, he's actively looking for her, and he found her, and he thinks he's helping her in this moment, but he's not. But I also get a sense, again, like Raven said, I think they can hurt Dee, but Dee can't hurt them. She can only just keep them at bay because she kept on
Right.
smacking them with the pipe.
Yeah, I think she needs actual magic, which is what they said in the preview, to like hurt them. But yeah, that scene was great.
And we go into the final scene, which for me was like, if I was in a movie theater, this final scene would have had me.
That was Avengers Assemble when he comes through.
Yeah.
It was like Avengers
That was a Marvel
Assemble.
moment.
So, you know, it starts off. Raven, I want to talk to you about this. It starts off with a shootout.
Oh, there it is. There it
With a
is.
shoot- No, what I liked about this moment is that when you see Letty with the bullet ricocheting off of her, you're thinking she's gonna run out and save Tick, and then your second thought is, but that's a very far distance.
Well,
How the fuck is
I was
that gonna
like,
work?
damn, this is how he's gonna
Yeah,
die.
I
I
was
was
thinking
like,
she's not gonna make it in time. I was
the
like,
tears were there for Tick's death. They were
Raven-
I
there.
was also like, nah, I feel like Tick's
Raven,
fine.
when the black Shogun
Shogun?
arrives, how did you feel?
I think I felt like Squad.
And then when they have the little
I was like,
huggy
squad
moment,
goals.
I was like, I want to show this. He could live
Yeah,
in my
right?
backyard.
And did you notice it was a
an
one
amazing
take? It was a
moment
one take
because I
shot
think we've. Oh yeah. I
from
guess
that
it
scene you're
is.
seeing, Raven. The camera doesn't cut. It's all one
Yeah.
take. Sweet.
Wow, look at that.
Until then,
Oh, yeah, that's
blood in the mouth.
By the way, I would have loved to be the PA on scene to just throw the
think I
bucket
had
of
the
blood
blood
on them.
splash
Like,
in the
that's so
fire.
much blood. It's literally like somebody standing there just being like, here you go. Ugh.
Right.
Yeah.
I would have
No,
loved
it's
to be the
mad fun.
person.
I love this moment because I feel like in this episode, even though we kind of had haunted paranormal, I think I still forgot about this side of the show. Like I
Right.
forgot all about the shadows. Shogus,
The magic.
Shogoths.
Shogun.
Dave, can someone with an American accent say it, please?
It's Shogun. I don't know.
Shogus.
Shoggath.
Shogoth.
I'm like, you have me sounding British. Golf.
Shogoth.
It
Shogoth.
is Shogoth because there's
Shogoth.
2 G's, so it's
Yeah.
Shogoth.
Shogoth.
Shogoth, right?
Or it could be Shogath because it depends.
Shogoth.
You say
Shogoth. You guys say
You don't
Shogoth.
say death, or do you say
Shogoth.
ball?
I don't know. Anyway, so that monster popped up, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, yo, Monster Freeman! I'm with it. It's about time they added one more to the family." And then I also realized, like, damn, yo, I guess the incantation did work, but I was also like curious as to like, I don't know if what was her name? Christina said, there has to be a body. Part of me wonders if there was some type of sacrifice made.
I have a theory.
See it? What?
Black Shogoth is Uncle George. We've known that Shogoth were once people. Why is this one black?
True.
Okay.
Right? I think Uncle George didn't. Maybe Uncle George died and Shogoth was born. Kind of like, it's like he was brought
did
back.
die
as a
on their property.
He did die on their property. Yeah. I think it's Uncle George. I think Shogoth is Uncle George. And that's my thing. Based on nothing but the fact that he's black. It's a black Shogoth.
That's racist.
It's toothless. It's toothless.
And I
loved
loved the How to Train Your Dragon moment between Tick and the Shogoth when they touched.
I know. I was like, they're pals.
As soon as I saw the episode, I tweeted spoilers without context. That gif.
Yeah. And Mike's
Love
one
it.
with it.
With it, I was like, oh my god, that was hilarious.
I was like, that's perfect.
We have 5
I
minutes
was at
left.
work trying to figure it out.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
what are they saying?
Right.
Trying to finish it.
Plus, at I work, I would have thrown my phone. Toss.
Seriously.
No, once Mike sent the clown thing, and I was like, oh no,
Oh,
clowns
okay.
on Lovecraft. I'm done tonight. This is not a good night.
We've got 5 minutes
It's
left.
too much.
So quickly we go through leftover questions. We hear about the autumnal equinox, which is a few days from now, and where Tick is supposed to be killed, and that's where Christina is supposed to get her power. What's all that going to mean? We talked about this earlier. Tick mentions the woman with robotic arm, which Raven and I assume is Dee from the future. What does that mean? Also, the Shogoth rips Lancaster apart, but I don't think Lancaster's dead.
You don't see him die.
Also,
Hurt.
that's not his body.
die.
He's been pieced together before.
True. Does it
true.
matter?
Right. Before. I love that he's always in tight shirts to remind us that the body.
Yeah.
And you see what notice when he gets flung by the Shogoth across across the house. That was Lancaster as well. Any other things? Okay, we'll go into a few more minutes left. Sadie's cultural references in this episode.
Cultural references. Obviously, the title. We're going to talk about Jiga-Boo. It's a term to describe Black people, if you didn't know. But it goes Jiga-Bobo because Bobo was Emmett Till's nickname. So that's how that ties in, if you guys did not know. The songs in this episode, Stop That Knocking at the Door, which we pretty much wanted to stop hearing the entire
Oh,
episode.
the song is freaking terrifying. If I ever hear it again, I'm going to be triggered.
Yo, if you hear that song, I'd probably throw my phone or radio or
Literally,
something.
wherever
Yeah.
it is.
Alice Smith's cover, I Put a Spell on You, or I Put a Spit
So
on You.
good. Had it on repeat ever since.
And then for movies, It Follows, Nightmare on Elm Street. The books that
Have
we
you guys
talked
seen It
about-
Follows? Sorry, have you guys seen
Oh,
It
yeah.
Follows?
It's coming for
Terrifying.
I haven't.
Oh, It Follows is great. It's
It's
similar where it's like
creepy.
you keep running. If you stop moving, it catches up to you.
Yeah.
You got to keep moving. You
Yeah,
gotta keep
the
moving.
faster
Really
you
good.
move, the faster it gets to you. It's
Yep.
creepy as shit.
Oh, I can't watch that.
Only if you do it.
You're
No
right.
thanks. No thanks, guys.
Yeah,
and
right.
then-
You can only pass it on if you get it on with somebody.
Mhm.
Really?
That's the only way you pass it. It's like an
If you
STD for a
do
ghost.
it.
Yeah,
Heh,
yeah.
heh.
It's an STD horror movie.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Little
Yeah.
knowledge there for you guys. Books this episode was Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, and then the Bible, Mark of Cain, which is where we get the protection spell from this episode. And then the most important thing for people-wise was Topsy and Bopsy, and then Naomi Wadler, who did the speech for March for Our Lives. I actually know her.
Great
She's my
speech.
mom. That's my mom's friend's.
She's your
niece.
mom? What?
My mom's friend's niece. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool.
That speech was awesome.
That speech was awesome. And every time you hear that speech, it's such a sense of empowerment.
That just has so much chills at the end. Oh.
So good. And then product wise, the cream of wheat guy in the poster. So yeah, those were all of our cultural references this week.
And Mike, the book references in this.
Well, they flat out said the differences, which was great. And helps us all.
I
out to
love
figure
that
it
whole
out.
scene. I was like, yeah, there it is. Thanks.
Yeah,
These are the differences.
There you go. Mike's
in
jumped on.
every book to series. This is the scene you've ever wanted. But then the one thing that isn't mentioned is that in the book, Dee, who is Horace in the book, he is actually, instead of being chased by demon twins, it's a devil doll. So
Chucky style.
Yeah,
That'd be so much worse for me. Oh my god, I'm
Raven
so
hates
glad
Chucky.
it wasn't.
They were both equally horrible. So
Annabelle here.
I don't
coming
like
at you.
doll things. That's why I won't watch Annabelle.
Anyway,
I don't like
on, that,
clowns.
on that note, we have less than a minute left of this podcast. So I think this was a great episode. Looking forward to the next episode. 2 more left,
There's
guys.
only 2 left. I don't want it
Right.
to go. What am I
And,
supposed to do on Sunday nights?
Thank you, Raven.
Well, yeah, no, we have to find something
Thank
else.
you.
Thank you, Mercedes.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Rocket Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening. My name is English Dave, and this has been a Nerdy Bunch review of Lovecraft Country Episode 8, Jiga-Bobo. We're so close, I don't know what's going to happen. But as always, Mercedes.
Keep it nerdy, guys.
Keep it nerdy. Peace.
Peace.